so far to harbor life. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand.
This is a challenge to the few conspiracists who still follow this channel. I stated a while ago that if I'm going to debate another one of you, I will insist that before we talk about visible curvature and perspective and the apparent horizon, you must first prove to me that space is fake. The entire FE notion is completely eviscerated by the existence of space travel, an endeavor undertaken by a number of different nations at this point, by the way, which is why you brush it aside with statements of, it's fake, it's CGI, etc. But I want you to prove it. Prove to me that anything in space is fake, and I'll listen to you. Because right now, it would appear that space is quite real. Yes, Barry Sheen, I can hear you complaining from here. Barry thinks I'm asking him to prove something impossible. But it is extremely possible, Barry, I assure you. Let me give you a great example in the form of a man who has spent an entire lifetime exposing fakery. James Randi. Randi is a retired stage magician who's made a name for himself by challenging paranormal and pseudoscientific claims, such as those of psychics, telekinetics, and so forth. His most famous exploit has been the $1 million paranormal challenge, in which he claims he will give $1 million US to anyone able to sufficiently demonstrate paranormal abilities. First issued in 1964, the prize has never been claimed. Let's take a look at some of Randy's work to get an idea of what he does and how he does it.
Do people remember accurately what takes place in a reading? Well, we have with us tonight Mr. Rod Beale. Mr. Beale, you're a satisfied client of Maureen's, I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah.
She did a reading for you not too long ago, which I understand you think is a very good reading.
Yes, she did.
A few simple questions, if I may. First of all, how long did the thing last, first of all, the reading?
About half an hour.
About half an hour. How many names, pardon me, did she give you during that period of half an hour?
Probably half a dozen.
About half a dozen. Well, you were kind enough to give us a tape recording of that reading done by Maureen Flynn for you. And for your information, during your reading, Maureen Flynn tried these names, and they are on the tape of the reading that you're referring to. Alan, Alfred, Alice, Anne, Bill, Charlie, Colin,
Connie, David, Derek, Eileen, Ellen, Flory, Frank, Fred, George, Jim, Joe, John, Karen, Catherine, Kevin, William, Lisa, Liz, Lynn, Mark, Mary, May, Michael, Rob, Ron, Shirley, Sydney, Stanley, Sid, and Steve. That's
37 names, and she also asked you if you could connect with any name beginning with an N or an L, and you could not do so. Now, what I have here is particles of a white plastic, which, when given a good puff, good heavy puff of air, will, I think, rather conclusively show whether or not blowing is a method accomplished. Now, it will not, perhaps, in some way differentiate between genuine psychic power and actual blowing, but it certainly should be very interesting indeed to see what now occurs.
James?
Ready?
The question is not valid because it's making an assumption which is not true. The foam does not in any way create static electricity, and Mr. Hydrake, in demonstrating that the pages were clinging together, didn't demonstrate it to my satisfaction. I think we could perhaps ask the judges for their opinion on that. I am not a scientist, so I'm not qualified to declare on it.
So, how can we apply what Randy does to the allegation of space travel being faked? Well, allow me to produce an example. You see these two photos? One of them has been manipulated. One has not. Flat earthers, do tell me, which is which? Now, no matter which you answered, I doubt you can tell me why, even if you're right. So let me break it down for you. The photo on the left comes from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and is real. The one on the right is from Apollo 14, but the Earth in the background is superimposed. How do I know? I put it there. Let's see if we can find some evidence of my tampering. First things first. If we open up the images in an editing program, I use one called GIMP, it's basically free Photoshop, and play around with the brightness and contrast, some artifacts are visible around the Earth in my faked image. While this isn't definitive, it definitely points to possible editing work. That or JPEG compression, but it's a pretty big image as you can see, so that's unlikely. Next, let's run both images through an ELA. ELA, standing for Error Level Analysis, is a forensic method to identify portions of an image that have been compressed differently when compared to the rest of it. It's sort of like a digital signature that can show you when one part of an image likely came from somewhere else. So, looking at my two photos run through an ELA, what do you notice? The left image looks pretty consistent. The Earth is lighter, but it still looks similar to the surface of the Moon. Bear in mind there is a degree of interpretation to ELA, however look at my fake photo on the right. The Earth, while darker than the astronaut's spacesuit, appears bright white in stark contrast to everything else. It looks quite obvious from here that it came from a different image. Now, the last thing we can try is something of a Hail Mary. It's a long shot, and will really only work if only small portions of the original image have been manipulated. A reverse image search. Let's see what happens when we take the LRO photo and pop it into the website tineye.com. Huh, well look at that. All we find are more copies of the exact same image. Nothing out of the ordinary here. However, now let's throw my fake photo at TinEye. Ooh, look what we found here. The original, unedited photo, found repeatedly by TinEye because it recognizes that, despite the addition of the Earth, the rest of the photo is completely identical to others that already exist on the internet. So, there you have it. 3 separate and pretty darn definitive ways to prove that a photo of the Earth has been faked. That's step 1, conspiracists. Step into the ring with me on this. I welcome you. Get on my level. Now, let's move on to video footage, shall we? First, what is the claim? Well, the claim is that footage of spacewalks and astronauts aboard the International Space Station are faked using various special effects including chroma key, harnesses, and a lot more. Well, your claim is lovely and vague, and everything you produce is usually perfectly explainable. Let's go through a few examples here. I've got the classic NASA bloopers video. Let's examine a few of its claims of fakery and see if they can be given any other more reasonable explanation.
Steady, and that there were very few vibrations of any sort. There's a picture of the INSAT actually being deployed from the spacecraft. You can see that the deploy went very smoothly. At the moment of deploy,
there were very few vibrations of any sort.
Yeah, that's a reflection. We're looking out a shuttle window, bro. The people inside the command module don't need helmets. Next. So your next piece of evidence is someone's bad Photoshop work? Notice how we didn't see any of the moving footage against the green screen? That's because Buddy here only edited 1 frame, and badly. Look at this mess. Ugh.
Back of his shirt a couple of upticks on either side where you would expect wires to come in on either side of that harness. They're often...
That's a neat conclusion you jumped to, but here's a problem. A standard full-body suspension harness looks like this, not what you showed.
Portraying that this is live. Of course, these things are fully choreographed and edited in advance to make sure that there's nothing too obvious.
Green screens don't have grids. How many times do we have to tell you guys how 99.9% of chroma key works? It requires, by its nature, one solid color. Here, let me show you.
After we got the hatch open, Ed stood up in the seat and got ready to go, and we cleared him to go, and then he took and pushed off from the seat.
Okay, my feet are out. I think I'm dragging a little bit, so I don't want to fire the gun yet. Okay, I'm separating from the spacecraft.
Ed White is flying at 17,000 miles per hour, 200 miles above the Earth.
Okay, I'm out.
Here's where I think the animators got carried away with creative license. The astronauts' helmets don't swivel. They're fixed to an airtight ring base, which is sewn to nearly 1/4 of an inch of multiply fabric, nylon, and mylar. Once pressurized, it becomes very stiff.
Well, a few things of note. First, the footage is obviously sped up, and if you can't tell, you need to watch more Godzilla movies. Second, the entire video is choppy. Look really close at how Earth is ticking along down there. And last thing, the helmet doesn't turn? Are you sure about that, bro? Are you really? So, what I'm gonna need you to do is do better. Come to me with your best fake space evidence. I'm ready. We're all stuck inside, so we're all ready. Let's do this. Get good. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is Dead Kennedy in Space. If you want to support me further, consider donating on Patreon or purchasing some of my work through Amazon or Teespring. Thank you, and I'll see you over the curve, Space Cowboys.
Live there. On the mote of dust. Suspended in a sunbeam. In a vast cosmic arena.